Have you ever stopped to wonder what is really going on in your brain during, well, life's most intimate moments? Today, we're going to dive into one of the most powerful forces shaping our daily lives, that super intricate and honestly often surprising connection between sex, our hormones, and the actual wiring of our brains. And while these ideas apply pretty broadly, we're going to focus in on how this all plays out across the female lifespan, which is where the data is just incredibly clear. So let's kick things off with the immediate effects. What's happening up there in the heat of the moment? And trust me, some of this stuff is pretty wild and totally unexpected. Okay, let's start with a classic. You've got a splitting headache, you are so not in the mood for anything, but then things kind of take a turn. We've all heard the old, not tonight, I have a headache line, right? But is there actually any science to the opposite? Well, as it turns out, yes. The research actually shows that sexual activity can be a pretty powerful pain reliever. It's likely because of this huge flood of endorphins and hormones like oxytocin. That's the one people call the bonding hormone. And they both have these amazing natural pain-killing properties. And what's really shocking is the scale of this. A German study from 2013 found that a whopping 60% of people suffering from migraines reported that they felt partial or even total relief after sexual activity. So yeah, it's not just a myth, it's a real documented neurological response. All right, so we've established it can help with pain, but could it also weirdly make you lose your memory? I know, it sounds bizarre, but hey, the brain does some mysterious things. It's a very rare condition, but it's real. It's called transient global amnesia, which is basically a sudden temporary memory loss that isn't caused by any other neurological problem. And get this, one of the known triggers can be really vigorous physical activity, and that includes sex. For a few minutes or even a few hours, a person just might not be able to form any new memories. The good news? It seems to have absolutely no lasting effects. Phew. So why does sex have these incredibly powerful effects on our brain? Well, a huge piece of the puzzle is this little chemical right here, dopamine. It's what lights up the reward center of our brain, giving us that feeling of pleasure and making us want to do something again. It's the same system that gives you a little kick from your morning coffee or that good feeling after a workout. Okay, so dopamine is obviously a key player, but it's really just one instrument in a much bigger biological orchestra. To really get what's going on, we need to meet the conductors. And that brings us to the sex hormones, specifically the two major players in the female brain that we're talking about today, estrogen and progesterone. These are so much more than just reproductive hormones. They are profoundly neuroactive, which is just a fancy way of saying they directly mess with how your brain works. Maybe the simplest way to think about them is like a gas pedal and a brake for your brain. Estrogen, for the most part, acts like the accelerator. It excites the system. Progesterone and the stuff your body makes from it tends to act like the brake, calming everything down. And we're not just talking about little fleeting mood changes here. These hormones are literally brain architects. They encourage something called neurite outgrowth, which is kind of like a brain cell sprouting new branches. They drive synaptogenesis, which is the creation of new connections, new synapses between those cells. And they even improve myelination, which is like putting better insulation on your brain's wiring so signals can travel way faster. So if hormones are the conductors, what's the orchestra they're leading? Well, that would be the neurotransmitters, the brain's chemical messengers. We're just going to focus on four key players for now. You've got glutamate, which is the brain's main go signal. Then there's GABA, which is the primary stop signal. Dopamine, which we've already met, is all about reward and motivation. And serotonin is absolutely crucial for keeping your mood balanced. So remember how we said estrogen is the gas pedal? Here's exactly how it works. Estrogen basically helps out the brain's main go signal, glutamate. It makes it easier for those excitatory signals to fire off. This is a huge reason why estrogen is linked to things like learning and memory. And now, here comes the break. When your body breaks down progesterone, its byproducts, or metabolites, give a big boost to GABA, the brain's main stop signal. They're essentially pressing down on that brake pedal, and that's what gives you that calming or even anti-anxiety feeling. Now, this balance between the gas and the brake, it's not set in stone. It's this constant dance. So let's zoom out and see how this whole dynamic plays out across an entire lifetime. This timeline really puts it all into perspective, doesn't it? You can literally see how the major hormonal transitions map almost perfectly onto shifts in mood vulnerability. As estrogen starts to rise in puberty, so does the risk for depression. That risk stays high through the reproductive years. And then it all starts to shift again as hormones decline during perimenopause. Scientists actually call these periods of huge hormonal shifts, like puberty, postpartum, and perimenopause, windows of vulnerability. These are times when the brain is literally rewiring itself. That whole balance between the gas and the brake gets a lot more volatile. The brain becomes more flexible or plastic, which is great, but that exact same flexibility can also make it more susceptible to mood disorders. And this has a very, very real impact. Across the board, women have a lifetime prevalence rate for depression that is 1.5 to 3 times higher than that of men. It's a difference that pops up in puberty and is most pronounced during the reproductive years. And if you look even closer, you can see these really specific periods where that vulnerability is at its highest. I mean, think about the dramatic hormonal drop right after childbirth, the ups and downs of the monthly menstrual cycle, and the decline in volatility of hormones during perimenopause. All of these are times of significant change in the brain. You know, this quote from a big 2015 review in the journal Frontiers in Neuroscience just sums it all up perfectly. The link isn't a coincidence. It's a fundamental part of our neurobiology. This constant dance between our hormones and our neurotransmitters, it doesn't just shape our moments of pleasure, but our long-term mental well-being too. So the ultimate takeaway here is that our brains are not static. They are incredibly dynamic, always being reshaped by our internal chemistry. And that leaves us with a final, really crucial question. If our brains are in this constant state of change, how can we better support their resilience and maybe even harness this natural plasticity to build better mental health? It's a powerful idea to think about. Thanks so much for joining me.